Hey boys, welcome to, I guess, my follow-up video on the Steve Smith, Cameron Bancroft, David Warner, ball tampering, cheating, what was I going to say? Details? What's the word I'm looking for? The aftermath, that's what I'm talking about, the aftermath of what has happened. So, obviously, we've learned now, and whether you believe it or not, 3 players have been involved, and I personally do believe that. A lot of people are still saying that Darren Lehman was involved, and you got no proof. No one's got any proof of that. I feel, honestly, if these 3 guys, and I'll talk about this quickly and then I'll get into it, but in my opinion, if these 3 guys, like, they're out for a long time now, if they were going down and Darren Lehman, the coach, was involved in this, like, surely one of these guys would out him or Darren Lehman would have to out himself, because, like, how could you let 3 of your players go down with the ship and you not own up to it? And I don't buy that it can be kept a secret. Like, I do not buy that. Someone would have to say something. So I personally believe it was just these 3 involved, and yeah. So it's come out now, and the punishments are extremely harsh, but honestly, I think they're fairly justified. So Warner and Smith, 12 months, and Bancroft, I think he only got 9 months. So again, I think that's good as well, that they didn't. I personally even would have thought maybe Bancroft could have got a lesser punishment, but it's not a ridiculous time, because it's a season, so that they'll be back if they're able to. Anyway, it's going to be tough for them to come back to cricket, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I personally think the right decision was made. Now, there's sort of 2 sides to this. I see a lot of people. I think a lot of the camp, the people that were originally, like, very mad and calling for their heads. I mean, I was obviously very disappointed and stuff, and I felt like they should add a very harsh penalty. But I wasn't calling for them to be like banned for life and stuff or anything like that. But it seemed like the majority of people are, like, pretty happy with the outcome. Like, I think it's fairly just. But then there's this other camp that is sort of like, it's too harsh, and a lot of people are bringing it back to, like, there's been other cases in the past of ball tampering, and they've only got, like, a couple of games and stuff, like, a Freddie, like, biting the ball. Even South Africa got sort of in trouble for it, and probably every country has been in trouble for it at one point or another. But the thing I would say to those people is, I think this is worse due to the fact that it was a planned thing. If you look at the Afridi thing, that was obviously terrible, and should he have got more than 2 games? Yeah, he probably should have, but I still don't think it was as bad. That was a heat of the moment thing. It looked terrible, but I don't think it's as bad as 3 players sort of conspiring to do it. That's where the biggest issue comes from, and coming from your leaders as well. That's the worst thing. Your captain and vice captain getting a young fella to do it. That's honestly the worst part of it. And so that's what I'd say to those people. And the other point about it is that I feel like, as an Australian, I want it to be a very harsh ban for Australians. Like, honestly, I don't care if other countries did the same thing and they only got, like, a couple of games or whatever. I don't really care, because it's other countries. If other countries are gonna be lenient and not be harsh with their penalties, then whatever, that's their prerogative. But as an Australian, like, I don't want guys to be in the team that are doing this sort of stuff. I want them to be out of the game, and to learn from it and accept that it's, they're not going to do it again. So I'm happy for the outcome, just because it's going to mean these guys, they're not going to do it again. Like, the stuff these guys have now gone through, especially Smith and Bancroft, I mean, there is no chance that an Australian player is going to do this again. Like, I would imagine anyway. Like, it's obviously ridiculous that it happened in the first place, but after the backlash and the punishment, I think it's set a good precedent, and I'm happy with the outcomes. Now, the other thing I'll mention in this, and I watched like the interview, Steve Smith and Bancroft, and I'll be honest, they were both pretty hard to watch, especially the Steve Smith one. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit emotional. In all honesty, it was hard to watch, and you can just look at it on Twitter, like all the sentiments from Australian ex-players and even like other countries' players, and pretty much like a lot of people are saying it's hard to watch. Now, some people, you see some comments like, "Oh, you're just sad because he got caught." I really don't think so. People are acting like it's for the money and stuff. It makes no sense. He's already getting paid a lot of money. And the thing people are bringing up is it's not, they're not bad people for doing something like this. It is a mistake. It was a planned mistake. It wasn't a heat of the moment thing, but it is a mistake nonetheless. And they got caught. They got the punishment I think they deserved. And yeah, it was, but yeah, the interviews were tough. They were tough to watch. And in my opinion, I think you can generally tell if a player is being sincere. And there is no way, if you really, a lot of people are against Steve Smith now, but there's no way you can watch that Steve Smith interview and be like, yeah, he's just playing up to the cameras. He's not sincere. There is no way you could think that. He's genuinely sorry for it. Yeah, it was sincere, and the Bancroft one was just as sincere. And I do, like I said at the start, I do feel much more sorry for Bancroft. Smith, I do feel sorry for to an extent, but nowhere near as much as Bancroft, because Smith was the captain. But the other point I was going to bring up, and this is the one thing we haven't really talked about, David Warner. Yeah, no one's coming out and saying this, but it seems like David Warner was the main instigator in all of this, because I watched the Steve Smith and Bancroft. They both asked, well, for Steve Smith, they asked Steve Smith, how do you feel about David Warner? And, whatever else, was he like the main one? And Smith, when he was about to answer, you could just it just seemed like he wanted to like throw Warner under the bus, but he didn't. He sort of paused and he just, said the right thing, and just, I'm not going to comment on other players' involvement. They also asked Bancroft if obviously Warner pressured him into it, and again, he paused and he was like, I'm not going to comment on it. And the other, just the fact that the media are bringing that to light to start with is sort of a good indication. But then the other thing to point out is that everything on Twitter, like, I've seen like Johnson, Clark, Harris, like all these ex-Australians and a few other internationals, everyone on Twitter has been like, feeling sorry for Bancroft and Smith. I haven't seen like anyone mention Warner. Yeah, I feel like Warner is, everyone's sort of, and I've never, honestly, Warner's behavior has always annoyed me for a long time. He's been a good player, but his behavior has annoyed me a lot. Ever since he was brought in, I like aggressive style of cricket, and I like sledging and all that sort of stuff, but Warner is always, he's either taking it too far, or, and on top of taking it too far a lot, he can't take it. He can dish it out with the best of them, but he can't take it. And that's the stuff I hate, because I'm fine. If people dish it out, that's fine. If they dish it out as much as possible, I don't mind. Sledging is fun. It's funny a lot of times. But if you can't take it, then like that's the age-old saying, don't dish it out if you can't take it. And Warner is a classic example of that. But I'm not going to delve into too much of that. But that was the point I wanted to bring up, is that Warner seems like, yeah, that the media seemed to, like, we're trying to get it out of Bancroft and Smith that it was Warner's main idea. And that's where I still feel more sorry for Bancroft, because they dragged him into it, and being the young guy, he's still you know, at the end of the day, he's still 25. He can still make his own decisions. But the captain, vice captain, talking to you about that, it'd be tough. It'd be tough. You know, you're not in his position. But then Smith, I still feel sorry for Smith, but at the same time, I'm like, well, he was the captain. I mean, are you really gonna let like Warner dictate what you do? Like, surely you can be like, no, we're not going to do that. But so, you know, they're both at fault still, but maybe Warner is, you know, more at fault, and he hasn't really had to front the media. And then like all the Twitter people have been like, you know, thoughts to Bancroft and Smith, but not Warner. So that's all I have to say about the matter here. Like I said, I think it's good. I think the outcomes are fair. Like they're harsh. Like they're harsh penalties, and you know, they've copped it for sure. It's been a tough week, but like I said, I think it's just, and I think it's the right decision. I think it's definitely the right decision to just get rid of the precedent. Like, if a player like even thinks about it now, all they have to do is think about what happened to Smith, Bancroft, and Warner after what they did, and just pull their heads in. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I think it's the right decision, right outcome. You know, you do have to feel sorry for them, but they made the choice. They made the choice, and they'll you know, they'll suffer the consequences. And you know, we'll see. We'll see if they come back. Honestly, they're obviously good players. It would be tough though. I mean, like, it'd be real tough. Like, Smith's, you know, best batter in the world, but how's he gonna be like 12 months out of the game? So much like scrutiny on him. The public hate him. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to get back into the spotlight and even play again. But yeah, that's for a year later. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Bit of a follow up here. Other than that, I will see you in the next one.